So I did have slides, and I'll post them online later. I didn't want to like have them drag a TV out just for me. So I'll do my best to go from notes and explain things the best I can, and then we'll do like some questions at the end if it doesn't make sense or you have questions or you want to talk later. So this is the part I struggle with. They introduced me, so I really don't have to do this, but I always struggle like how deep should I go, like who I am, but really I'm just Scott. I just make software locally. And what qualifies me to talk about this is really not different from anyone else. I've been developing software for a while. I've heard blockchain a lot. I work with a guy that chews my ear off every day about blockchain, so I have to like tell him no a lot. So in order to tell him no, I have to understand why we shouldn't develop in blockchain or why we should. So I've gained a lot of information and practical experience of playing with blockchain to see where it fits and where it doesn't fit. So the talk is going to break down in 3 parts. I'm going to explain what cryptocurrency is and kind of how we got here and why we need cryptocurrency, how the blockchain architecture works, and then we're going to talk about the good things that we can do with blockchain. So I believe that we should be doing more humanitarian things with blockchain, like helping people in new ways that we couldn't before, rather than concentrating on the financial get-rich stuff. And I'll break down that later. Now before I start, my struggle with this is I didn't know who was going to be here. So I didn't know how deep I should go on the technical side or how high I should go on the non-technical side. So I tried to balance the two. So any feedback on how well I did would be great. And if you want me to go deeper in the technical stuff, we can have like a sidebar. Or if you want me to explain it at a higher level, I can hopefully do that too. But that's my disclaimer for if it sucks. I'm just telling you if it sucks, that's why. So cryptocurrency. So when I started to think how to explain cryptocurrency and how we got to where we are, the main point that kept jumping out at me was that it was a natural evolution, right? So we went from, if we go take money all the way back to the beginning on how we trade something for goods and services. It was gold, like you gave 5 gold pieces and a guy made you a sword. And then you went and you had coins and you had dollars and coins, and then credit cards, right? So now I don't carry cash. A lot of people I know don't carry cash. Everybody just kind of pays with their credit card. And I even get annoyed when I can't pay with my phone. And I get admire, I can just use Apple Pay and I don't have to do anything. But other stores, I got to like pull my credit card out. So the next evolution of that is all digital. There's nothing to hold in your pocket. There's no card to pull out. You just make transactions on your phone. So that's obviously that's where cryptocurrency was born, like why we need it. The second part of that is that it was a reaction to dishonesty. So when we had the big financial crisis and everybody got bailed out, people got really angry, like why do they get bailed out but we don't get bailed out? And the nerds got together and said, well, we'll fix it, we'll just eliminate them. So that's basically what blockchain is, right? We're going to eliminate the government, we're going to eliminate the big banks, and we're going to take the power back to ourselves and we're going to kind of control it. And then the third thing is, this may be unpopular opinion, but is a bubble. Is cryptocurrency could possibly be a bubble. So right now, a lot of people are rushing to cryptocurrency, especially financial people, because they see a big payday. Like if you buy Bitcoin today, or if you bought it 2 years ago, it's worth a lot of money today. So any coin is going to be worth a lot of money to some people, right? And a lot of those are going to fail. So a lot of people focus on the Bitcoin aspect of cryptocurrency and not so much on the blockchain aspect of cryptocurrency, and the blockchain is the most important, most interesting part that can actually help people rather than just chasing dollars. So how does Bitcoin, or how does cryptocurrency work from front to back? So there's 3 parts. So there is a wallet, and then a coin in the middle, like an object, and then there's the blockchain on the back side. So the wallet is just an interface, it's just software. That's how you get access to the coins you've purchased or you're going to trade or any transactions. So think of it like a Twitter app on your phone or an Instagram app or a Facebook app. It's just a way for you to interface with the back-end system, and you post something and then it goes off to the system, and then the other people that are also on that system and friends with you can see what you posted. So that's the object you put in, right? So your wallet contains all of your coins, all of your transactions. You can see what you have, your balance, such and so forth. And then the middle is the Bitcoin part. And I'm just going to say Bitcoin, but I mean like every coin, like any coin. There's a lot of coins. And then that's your access to the backend system that I'll explain in a minute. So all of those get access through the wallets, and then you have this transaction, which is this coin object, and then you have the blockchain part. And then the third part of the architecture is your blockchain, and that's basically your database. It's different in a few ways. The first way it's different is it's fully distributed. So if we were all on part of a blockchain, we would all have our own version of that blockchain, and all the data would be synced across everyone. And then if 3 people left, if this row left, if these 4 people left, it wouldn't change anything. We would all still have that same data. It doesn't disrupt the network. We all still own that data. It's democratized, right? So instead of a big bank having this money and then the bank leaves and we're all like, whoa, you took all of our money and we're insured, but we're kind of screwed, that node can leave and we're still okay. Does that make sense? Okay. And the 2 other important parts are it's immutable and anonymous. So it's immutable in that the blockchain is a ledger system. So it has a record, and it doesn't point to a person, but it points to a transaction that can never be changed. So you have confidence that this data is secure and private. Private is relative, I'll get to that later, but it can never be changed. So if you need to amend that record or change something to that record, you have to create a new one. So you have confidence that when you look at this, nothing is forged or fudged or anything is changed. Plus, you have the entire group seeing it. So if something is up, then somebody in a group goes, wait a second, that doesn't look right, and we basically police ourselves. Immutable, distributed, it's anonymous. So it points to a person, so it points to that coin that you have, that transaction in your wallet, but it has a long string of characters and numbers that point to that transaction, not a person. So if I were to have a transaction on the blockchain, I would have access to this key that gives me access to that blockchain, but it wouldn't have my name. So it's visible, everybody can see it, but they can't see who it was. They can just see that a transaction took place. If I'm going too fast, tell me to slow down. Okay, so the last part is what good can be done with it. So I'm a bit of a skeptic when it comes to the Bitcoin thing. Like I think it's great, and I think at some point we're all going to be using Bitcoin. But I think it's, like I mentioned, a big gold rush now, and everybody's rushing to it, and a lot of that stuff's going to fail, and a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money, and it's going to be bad. But on the backside of that, we have this blockchain technology that can do really, really great things for people that we couldn't do before because it removes the middleman. It's anonymous and it is immutable, so you have some confidence that your data is secure. So before I get into a few examples of things that we could do on the blockchain to actually help people, we have to talk about smart contracts. So smart contracts are, they're kind of hard to explain at a high level. So they're programmatic contract details that are injected into the blockchain. So a programmer, as he's developing some transaction that's going to take place in the blockchain, you're going to put a deed on there, or you can put some documents on there, or a birth certificate or something, or a loan for a car, and the details of that contract are going to be listed programmatically in that blockchain. And remember, they're immutable, they can't be changed, nobody can change them or forge them, they're there forever. And it defines something to happen at a certain event. So I hate to reduce programming to if this, then that, but that's basically what it is. If this event happens, do this thing. So if it were a auto loan for 36 months, and it's due on the 15th of every month, and if you don't pay it on the 15th of every month, you get charged a $25 late fee, that program would run at that event, go, he hasn't made the payment, he gets dinged $25, and it can look, and all of that stuff is kind of visible to it. All those records are visible, and that's how you would do a car loan kind of on the blockchain with a smart contract. Probably not a good example. We're not changing the world by putting auto loans on the blockchain, but that's an example of how you could programmatically set a contract to define those parameters. This makes things like Code City even more important because if you believe that everybody should at least understand programming code going forward, as a society, this is a testament to that, because even if you don't understand all the finer points of what that code's doing, being able to look at it and ask questions and say, I don't really understand this contract, but it looks like it does this. Is that what it does? Rather than getting the iTunes terms of service and going, it's fine, and agreeing to it, and then realizing that you'd agreed to something you didn't want to. Like in a smart contract, that could be devastating. Like you could have really agreed to something that you didn't realize was a big deal. So it's important to kind of understand those things. So smart contracts, really important. That's how you embed code into the blockchain to handle a transaction. So now some examples of things that we can, I don't think I need my notes anymore. 3 examples of things that we could do on the blockchain that I think are way more important than being able to buy stuff on Amazon with Bitcoin. And the first thing is voting. So if you think about voting, and even if you take the most recent election out of this isn't a Democrat, Republican thing. Just take that election and go back 10 years, right? And I'm sure everybody can point to a spot where the numbers were off, dead people were voting, or some other corrupt thing, right? Where people were voting several times. If we put something like this on the blockchain as a country, and voting is all done programmatically, and it's stored on the blockchain, and it's immutable, and these people can't vote more than once, and there's smart contracts in place to ensure that these things happen, that revolutionizes voting forever, right? And it makes sure that the people that we want elected are elected, and we're not being screwed by some government that decided that they wanted to kind of change the rules on us. And it's a way of, again, it's democratization. It's taking it back into the power of the people. That's an important thing, I think. The next thing is third world countries. So when a third world country needs aid, they often have a corrupt government, and when we send them aid, the government gets it before they ever have a chance, right? And they get maybe 20% of what they sent them. The other 80% goes to the corrupt government. If we could put something like that on the blockchain where it goes from this point to this point and bypasses that government completely, and we can make sure those people get that thing, like that is a good idea, right? That is a world-changing idea. And the same thing can happen with like the floods we had in Houston and in southern Florida. They're just devastated, right? And I'm not saying the United Way is a bad thing, and I'm not saying nonprofits are a bad thing, but there's a lot of stuff that has to go through before it gets to the people. If we could get that on a blockchain and make sure that when we send them aid, it gets directly to them immediately, then that's a world-changing idea. And then the last one, I struggled with this one. It's really important to me, but it's hard for me to explain the benefit of it, but it's there, trust me. So the last one is cancer research. So I think everybody probably at least knows somebody that has either passed away from cancer or knows somebody affected by cancer. We should have cured this by now. So I think it's probably the pharmaceutical companies getting in the way because they're making a lot of money off the drugs. If we could democratize this on a blockchain with a smart contract where the people that are qualified and care about it can trade information and speed up the process of trying to find a cure and put it back in the hands of the people and remove the government agency, that is a world-changing idea. The problem I have with that is that at some point you have to go through the government. You can't bypass them completely if you're dealing with cancer research. So I cautioned not to bring that example up, but I think it's an important one. So those were 3 examples. Oh, I have one more. My wife she was adopted, and when she reached a certain age, she wanted to find her parents, her real parents. And I think most adopted people do this. They really want to know where they came from. So there's this process of who are my parents? I have to find my parents. What hospital was I born at? Where are these records at? If we could put that stuff on the blockchain, if we could put birth records on the blockchain, now we have an immutable record of a human on this planet, and they would always know who their parents were, and it kind of revolutionizes how people find where they came from. And that was really fast, but that's all I have. If I would have had slides, I would have been slower. That's my excuse. So does anybody have any questions? Yes.
So blockchain is hosted in a distributed way. So who's hosting blockchain right now? Is this individuals or companies, or like kind of where's it starting right now?
Okay, so he's asking me, I'm not even sure if I'm doing this right. He's asking me who's hosting blockchain if it's distributed. And the answer is a lot of people. So did I talk about ICO? Damn it. Okay, so is everybody familiar with what an IPO is, an initial public offering for a company? Coins have an ICO, which is an initial coin offering, very clever, for some cryptocurrency that they want to bring into the world. And what happens is people invest a bunch of money into this idea, and that basically funds that company to build that cryptocurrency out. So that's kind of what an ICO is. So each one of those is a set of a distributed network, right? So if you have 5 cryptocurrencies, you have 5 blockchain networks. So not just one, but 5 of them, which I think might be what you're asking, is like, this is going to be a huge drain on our infrastructure as far as like, if everybody's putting everything on the blockchain, like who's supplying all that electricity? Like, are we helping the environment? Are we hurting the environment?
It's like everybody has a copy of the blockchain. So
right.
Like if I had a copy of my computer, is it like 20 terabytes?
Right. Well, it's still part of the network, so it's distributed in that sense, but I don't think it's distributed in the sense where you're going to have a copy sitting on your computer. You're still going to push it to a centralized server, but it's clonable, right? So anybody can kind of take this data, read it, do with it, get access to the blockchain. So even though, man, it's really hard to explain on a technical level. Short answer is a cluster of networks, all kind of separate right now. There's not like one blockchain. They are, I will touch on this, they are starting to say, initially that group thought that one item per blockchain. Like, so if it's if it's Bitcoin, it's just Bitcoin on that blockchain. But with the smart contracts, people are starting to say, well, you can put other things on there also. So you could have Bitcoin on there, but you could also have contracts on there and different records, which takes those small distributed networks and makes slightly larger distributed networks. Yes?
If you think that blockchain has an opportunity to improve voting, do you think it's possible that direct democracy might become more possible as opposed to needing Congress and leaders in general?
So he's asking me if I believe that voting can be disrupted by blockchain. Do I think that democracy can be disrupted by blockchain? Yeah. I do, actually. So I think, so a lot of people have related blockchain as the new internet, right? So the internet, and I relate this bubble to the same thing. So when the internet came along, not including the military part, but when we as people got access to the internet, we screwed it up. Like, we had a website for everything, pets.com, like whatever we could do to make money, right? And the whole thing blew up, and it crashed, and nobody wanted to do anything. And then we realized, oh, we could do better things than that with the internet, right? We could do more important things. And then it's everywhere now. Like, it's changed everybody's lives. And I think the blockchain has the potential to do the same thing, where in the beginning, everybody's running to it thinking, oh, I can make so much money. And then I think that's going to crash, and people are going to lose a lot of money. And on the other side of that, we as people are going to start to do real things with that and really help people. And I think we do take some of that power back to ourselves, in my opinion. Sure.
So other than just people adopting blockchain, what do you think is the next kind of stage or step that needs to be taken for blockchain to become this larger, overarching entity that is the goal for it to become?
Okay, so he's asking me, how does blockchain kind of cross that path to become widely accepted? I think it's after the crash. I don't really know because it's really hard. I mean, even I struggle to explain it, and I don't even understand all of it. It's really deep and complicated, and I think that's a detriment to it. Like, it's going to be really hard to adapt. It's not like, and this is why coins are the thing, right? Because it's a coin to a blockchain is a website to the internet. So this internet is this huge network of computers that most people don't understand why it's spread out all over the place. They just know that if they type facebook.com, they get a website and they can see their friends' pictures, right? They don't understand the underlying technology. The same thing kind of has to happen with blockchain, and that's kind of where the coins come into play. But I feel like it's going, in my opinion, I'm a skeptic, going a little bit down the wrong path right now, and it's going to break before people kind of back up a little bit and go, well, let's do something better, I guess. Yes.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Do you have like some examples of interfaces like that we could look at to see like what it design-wise it looks like?
Yes. If you go to ethereum.com, Ethereum is right now, it's kind of the premier platform for developing things on the blockchain. And you can see some interfaces there. It's a little nerdy, so some screenshots would probably show you kind of how it works. Other than that, I don't know anything other than if you were like to search like some coins some ICOs and kind of look at what those interfaces look like. But Ethereum might give you a good idea. Yep.
Is programming in blockchain language independent? Is there a preferred language, or is there high-level language designed for it, or what do you program in?
Okay, he's asking me what can you program in on the blockchain, and it is independent. It's just a design pattern, basically. So it's just an architectural pattern of how it stores data, not necessarily how it gets there. Now, Ethereum developed their own programming language on top of that, which is basically strongly typed JavaScript to make that access easier, because they give you some tools to make it easier, but essentially you could build it in anything you wanted. Will?
It's mostly based for your opinion on this. I don't remember any alternative currency getting this big since probably ever.
Mm-hmm.
So what has to happen that things like the Federal Reserve put their foot down, like China,
Mm-hmm.
and they just say, this is over?
Yeah. So he's asking me, this is the biggest change in currency that we've possibly ever seen, or at least in our lifetime. What has to happen before the government steps in and says, that's enough? And it's already started. So there is I wish I could remember the name of it. There is a documentary on Netflix about, yep. And so you know the guy I'm talking about, and I can't remember his name. He was in New York City, and he wanted to regulate cryptocurrencies. He did not want it to be free. He wanted it to be under regulations. And what happened was he ended up resigning and starting a consultancy that deals with cryptocurrency, so cashing in on that. So I think eventually the government is going to step in and try to take this over. I don't know what that event is. I think it's kind of like net neutrality. Like they rephrase it every couple of years and throw it at us again, and we fight really hard and say, you're not taking our internet away from us, and we win just because people are like, if we do this, we're not getting voted back in. So I think it's probably going to go down that same path, but I don't know what that one event is. I think what they'll try to pin it on is it's been hacked a few times, and there's been some transactions that were big transactions that were mistakes, and they're like, oh, sorry, that's a bug. And I think the government is going to take hold of those things and point at them and go, see, you can't do this because computers aren't reliable, and then try to regulate it over top of that so they can get a piece of the pie. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah.
Do you have any real world, everyday type examples of how it's actually being used right now that maybe a more layperson might understand?
Okay, so he's asking me if I have any examples that a regular person would understand as far as Bitcoin and blockchain are. And I can't really think of one. There are a lot of startups out there that are doing it. I don't, because I'm a skeptic, I don't pay attention to a lot of them. All the experience that I have with it is I set up 2 servers and I put 2 blockchains on there and I threw some data back and forth just to kind of see how it worked. But if you go to, if you just Google some ICOs, I'm sure you'll get some examples of things that people are doing with blockchain technology.
Like, it seems like a hypothetical of a car loan, say.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go to the grocery store and go pay with your Bitcoin.
Right.
And you buy some groceries.
Yeah. So, yeah. So there are rumors that Amazon is on the verge of accepting Bitcoin. So you'll be able to.
So once Amazon does that, it's over.
Yeah, like that's the gorilla, right? That's the event. Cool. Yeah.
Is there any insurance, like similar to FDIC, that you can get to protect your coins against thefts?
So he's asking if there's any insurance to protect your coins against theft. Nope. You're kind of, this is the trust issue, especially with the smart contracts. Like if you don't understand kind of what's going on beside there, like you could lose your money. And I guess you could try to go to sue that startup. But I really don't see you getting anywhere. So there's no fail-safe in there other than you trust that company that what you give them is going to be worth something later down the road, and that they're not going to lose your data. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Ross Albright story?
No.
All right, we'll talk about it afterwards. Then I guess I'll go ahead with my question.
Okay.
If you don't think Bitcoin is going to last, and I don't know enough about it to comment, so
Yeah.
kind of agree just because the first thing is something never really works.
Right.
But I know a lot of people like myself are kind of hard money like gold types, and I've heard a lot of people argue that there's some possible connection between Bitcoin as like the asset claim on a specific unit of gold, and that like just like how your credit card scans, and then if your money's at the bank, you would use Bitcoin or some digital currency as a medium for your actual physical hard money that's not subject to bubbles and manipulation and all that. I just wondering what your thoughts on this.
Okay. So I think what he's asking is what do I think about the concept of Bitcoin actually pointing to real money rather than just being digital currency?
Yeah.
I don't think that solves anything. I think, I mean, if Bitcoin's just pointed, this is the struggle that I had understanding it. I'm like, if I buy Bitcoin and I spend $400 on Bitcoin, what can I do with it? Like, can I just sell it for more money? I could just buy stock. So it felt like the stock market. And I'm like, oh, it's like the stock market. I buy Bitcoin for $400. I wait 6 months and I sell it for $800. But it doesn't actually do anything. So I think in order for it to really be successful, it has to totally get to this complete digital currency where money is bypassed completely. And maybe that's how it is in the beginning, cryptocurrency pointing to actual money. But I think it needs to get past that. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yep.
So since we're talking about like the value of cryptocurrency, so right now, what actually determines the exchange rate of real money to cryptocurrency if there's no regulation for central banks and stuff?
Okay, so it's a little deep. So how it works now, and this is another point I forgot to mention. I'm terrible at this. So a blockchain or a coin is finite. There's a set number of them, and there's no more created. It's not like printing more money. Like once you have them, you have them. So the value of that is based on almost like an exchange rate. So you define how much that's worth, right? So when Bitcoin first started selling for pennies on the dollar, the people that bought it then waited until now and sold it are multimillionaires, because now as demand grows, the price of that grows. And that's kind of that's the shaky part, like that is like it's not regulated, but it's defined by us at how much it's worth, but the price could just drop. So this is part of my skepticism on the Bitcoin side. Like I would rather concentrate on like the humanitarian efforts and like putting things on the blockchain and not worrying about things going up and down and me losing my money, only about like solving real problems. Is it? Oh, one more. Yep.
Did you discuss mining at all, or how coins come about?
Did I buying them?
No, mining. Like how
Oh,
coins
mining.
come about,
I didn't.
stuff like that.
I did not.
You can just be very brief. Like,
Okay.
We don't need to go very
Okay. So he's asking me if I explained how mining is, and I'm not an expert on mining, so I'll do my best. So how mining works is you basically have a server and it has a software application on it that mines Bitcoin. So it goes and it searches these blockchains for transactions and then verifies that they're true, and then they get value somehow. I'm not actually sure how they get value, but that's basically how a miner works. So it crawls, for lack of a better term. The blockchain verifies that these transactions are actually accurate and in place.
So you mentioned that it's hacked, so it's not necessarily completely incorruptible, as it's largely top, or is that?
Valid point. So he's asking me, I mentioned that it was hacked, so, and I also mentioned that it was secure, so one of those is true and one of those is not. So the architecture itself is secure, it's immutable, it's anonymous. How it's implemented is not always, and this comes into the trust issue, is and understanding how programming works and how computers work to make sure that you're getting into a deal with someone that you trust. So you can give your data to Google, or you can give your data to Dropbox. One of those you can trust, and one of those you can't, arguably. And you just have to kind of weigh the two. So that's how you get insecure systems on the blockchain, because it's that interface to the backside architecture. Because what they're doing is they're changing something in that smart contract, and then injecting things in there, and then getting access to the blockchain. If that makes sense.
So it's the interface to the blockchain where the computation happens.
Yes.
The blockchain itself is cohesive.
So, yep. Yeah.
So, I read what I think it was that documentary. So there's 21 million coins, where there's like some set very large amount. Do you know anything about when you reach that amount? Are they just going to keep subdividing it till infinity? So like if you want to pay somebody less than a coin, like how do they handle inflation?
He's asking, since there's a finite set of Bitcoin, and there's a lot of them, what happens when we get to the end? And the difference in cryptocurrency and regular money is you can give somebody a crazy decimal of a Bitcoin. So you can say, I'm going to pay you 0.000027653 of this Bitcoin, and that's what it costs. So the short answer is I don't know what happens when they get to the end. I don't know if the value of the Bitcoin goes up, if they split that off. Now, Bitcoin split in 3 pieces so far. So they did what's called a fork. So the first, and this is part of the bubble, the first part of Bitcoin, there was a group of people that didn't agree with the way things were happening. So they did what's called a hard fork. So they took that thing and they created another one over here. We'll call it Bitcoin 2. So now they have Bitcoin 2 working over here. Now you have 2 completely different versions of the same technology. And then I heard that it happened yet again. So now you have 3 of them. And this is kind of the problem, right? So now you have 3 versions of the same thing, and it's the whole kind of network is kind of shaky. So maybe that's what they do. Once you get to the end, you just fork it and create another version of that. I don't know what happens.
It's the same as printing more.
It does. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Well,
I have a comment and then I have a question, have a comment.
okay.
I don't know if you know this, if you watch Banging on Bitcoin, you know about the $10,000 pizza.
Yeah.
That's now worth $27 million.
Yep.
They bought it 7 years ago. And the reason I say that is because Bitcoin has almost doubled in value every year
Yep.
since its inception. And I was listening to a podcast and it said if you wait until you understand Bitcoin to buy it, it'll be too late.
Yep.
So you kind of just have to place a bet
Yep.
with a little bit of information instead of waiting to fully understand it to buy it because it'll be just way too late. My question, have comment is for people who are just trying to figure it out, how do you suggest they get a little bit more acclimated to what it is to understand it at least somewhat?
I would buy the Blockchain Revolution. So there's a book called The Blockchain Revolution that gives a pretty good background into how the blockchain works, what problems can be solved with it, and just a deeper overview than what you're going to get from a blog or a website or Coinheads or some of the other websites out there. So that's what I would do. So I would get the Blockchain Revolution, and there's another one. I'll post it in the Slack channel or something later. I can't remember. I have it at home. I read it, and now I can't remember the title of the book. And that's what kind of gave me a lot of my information as far as the blockchain. So that's what I would do. I would dive into some books, some people that know way more about it than any of us do, and way more than a blogger would. Okay, thank you.